Yes.
Hi, Risbel. That's a very sheepish answer.
Oh no, why are you calling me?
I'm calling you for the podcast. Do I have a different voice when I call you for the podcast as opposed to just a friendship call that isn't for the podcast?
You just always try and have a quippy response to however I pick up, and I guess you're not as on when we're just chatting.
What version do you prefer?
I just felt dread when I realized I picked up in such a rude way, and I realized you were recording me.
I've just got one question for you today. The episode is about Quiverfull. Do you know what Quiverfull is?
I have no idea what that word is.
Can you take a stab in the dark? So it's quiver full, like Quiverfull. So a quiver is like what an archer uses to put their arrows in. And I guess quiver full indicates that you have a full quiver. What do you think Quiverfull could be about? And you can be wrong.
Quiverfull. Is this a product or a service, or am I guessing that as well?
It's more service than product, but it's more movement.
Movement. Okay, quiverful. Maybe, okay, it's not this, but it could be something that tracks how many arrows you have left. If you're really into archery, so that you always have a full quiver.
I think that's really good. The word's more of a metaphor in this case, but that is a really, really good guess.
Yeah. I feel like you're tricking me and it's some kind of sex toy.
It's not a sex toy. It does involve sex, though.
Okay. Quiverful.
Well, this is a good throw. Wait, this is a good throw to the episode. Stick around to find out. Is that good?
Sure, yeah.
I'm David Farrier, a New Zealander accidentally marooned in America, and I want to figure out what makes this country tick. Now, one of my favorite things about Americans is the tendency for them to come up with an idea and really run with it. It doesn't really matter if the idea is good or not, it just depends on their enthusiasm and utter conviction that they are correct. I think we struggle with this a little bit in New Zealand. We lack the confidence and bravado of the American psyche. We like to quietly observe and see what other people say before we say anything ourselves. But not in America. So this week, I wanted to look at a very niche thing that Americans invented and a small number of people ran with: Quiverfull. The Quiverfull movement basically took a metaphor and went all in. In this case, having a quiver full of arrows, except the arrows are children and the quiver is either a womb or a man who provides the sperm. I'm not too sure. But the takeaway is that big families are good, a blessing from the big man upstairs, so all family planning should be left to God. Condoms, who needs them? IUDs, no way, not on my watch. Just get married, have sex, and see what happens. I wanted to find out more about Quiverfull, where the idea came from, and what it means for those practicing it. So, throw away those pesky contraceptives and get ready to have loads of kids, because that's what God wants, and because this is the Quiverfull episode.
Flightless, flightless. Flightless bird, touchdown in America. I'm a flightless bird, touchdown in America.
Hi, Rob.
Hey, Dave.
How are you? Had you heard of Quiverfull before I said the word Quiverfull? I feel I've said it about 10 times now.
I don't know what Quiverfull is.
Do you use contraceptives in your relationship?
Yes.
Okay, so your children were sort of semi-planned.
They were fully planned.
They were fully planned.
And came very quick from...
Did they?
From being planned, yes.
How long before you were like, we're going to have a kid?
Like 3 sexes.
Wow, that's so good. That's a great...
Yeah.
Was it the same number for first child and second child, or was one a bit quicker?
It happened like pretty quick for both.
That's amazing. So I would argue if you practice Quiverfull, i.e. no contraceptive, you would probably have about, how many, probably 30 kids by now?
Probably, yeah.
Do you think you'd ever go more than 2?
No.
Why 2 for you?
2 feels good.
I've got one sibling, 2 was great.
Yeah,
Because this is
I
the
don't want to
thing.
get in trouble.
Natalie won't be listening.
No, not
It's
from
fine.
her. I don't want to be like reductive in saying like we didn't want an only child because we felt like Calvin having someone was important and that he wasn't
Well, there's a million
taking the
ways to
brunt
do
of
things.
everything.
Why not have 3 or 4 and then they've got even more friends?
We have had that thought, and as I've gotten older, this is the part where I don't want to seem
No, I mean, you can only
reductive.
talk to your own kind of personal feelings and about yourself, which is whatever.
I think subconsciously I feel like when people have more than 3
Yeah.
or 4 kids,
Mhm.
that there has to be some sort of like religious thing or other element that I'm not getting.
No, well, I think this is really interesting because I think this is where Quiverfull kind of comes in, because Quiverfull is the extreme of that. It's like we're having a ton of kids because God is in charge, which is not just in Quiverfull, it's in a bunch of different religions. But that's kind of what it tends towards, right?
I also don't want to alienate anyone that's listening that has more than 3.
Oh, no.
three
I've
kids.
got a friend that has about 6 kids and they're not religious at all. They just love having kids. It's like a thing.
I know people too like that
Yeah.
I think break my idea of that. It's just I think where I grew up and the people I grew up around when I was around the church, like when you had that many kids, it was like a very religious symbol.
I remember at our school we had the Johnsons, and I think they had she had maybe 9 siblings, and it was definitely a religious thing.
Yeah, it's like Seventh Heaven vibes, where like
Completely.
Dad's the pastor.
I forgot about that show.
Dad's the pastor, and
Seventh Heaven.
you can't.
Who was in that? It was it was
Jessica
a
Biel.
pop star.
Jessica Biel was in
Jessica
that.
Biel was in there.
She married Justin Timberlake.
Wow. And was it Aaron Carter? Was he one of them?
No,
Seventh Heaven cast.
I don't know that any of the other. I don't think there were pop stars in that.
Oh no, I'm thinking of something else. What was?
You're gonna have to Google the dad, though. I think something happened with the dad.
Oh God. Oh. This is a headline here in the LA Times. Seventh Heaven alums condemn TV dad Stephen Collins' sexual abuse ahead of rewatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, any crazy popular show, there's going to be some horrific shit that comes out of it, right?
Well, he was the pastor on the show too,
Oh,
so it's a little.
Yeah, but on the nose.
Yes, a little too on the nose.
A tiny bit of admin,
Yes,
because we love admin. We still have 2 live shows coming up: Portland on April 13th and San Francisco on April 18th. I've been told not to call it San Fran because that's
don't do that.
horrific.
Yeah.
SF is okay, I think.
Yeah.
But San Francisco is good.
I mean, saying SF, I feel like is a little odd. I would just say the full
San
city.
Francisco.
Yeah. But when
Yeah.
you're typing it, I think you can put SF.
It's okay typing it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah.
So tickets are on sale for those shows. Now, thank you for all the submissions and ideas you're putting through to flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. I feel in my head I have kind of what the shows are going to be now. But of course, if you've got any insane ideas that come up, feel free to email still. And me and Rob, we want to know like where to go and what to do in town.
Yeah, where to eat, what to see.
that'd be good.
And if you're in San Francisco, bring your friends.
Please do.
Bring like 3 or 4 friends each.
Yeah, we're trying to spread the podcast around, so bring some buddies. We've also got some t-shirts for sale for Flightless Bird at flightlessbirdpod.com. We're on YouTube. And as always, you can contact us at flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com.
And we're going to do another episode of Flights of Fancy coming up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're basically, you can pitch your idea to us directly on the show about what you think we should do a deeper dive into. So last time we did this, we've only done it once and we loved it and we've never done it again because it's a bit of an admin hell to get together.
Yeah.
But that's how we found out about
Navy dolphins.
About Navy dolphins.
That's like the perfect example of what we're looking for. Like we talked to someone that trained Navy dolphins, so she was our gateway into the episode. So we are looking for people that have unique access to some sort of topic that can maybe speak on it or has a relative or a friend.
That would be amazing.
With that access.
And if you want to submit to being a part of that, it is bit.ly/FB
Fancy. Yes. All lowercase.
Yeah. If you're watching us on YouTube, then the URL is in front of you now. Do people say URL? URL?
Yeah, URL.
URL.
I don't think
URL.
I don't think I've ever heard it called an URL.
I don't think I've ever said that before, ever in my life. Now, I know recently I've gone down a bit of a sort of Christian cult rabbit hole.
But we're going to do it again.
We're going to do it again. But this isn't just going to be a Christian cult podcast, but I just found this whole topic incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, and you're really drawn to the fucked up Christian stories, huh?
I was raised in the Baptist church, so I kind of feel like I know the world enough. So when I hear about this stuff, I kind of leap on it. I've been writing about weird megachurches on my newsletter Webworm for about 4 years now. Mm-hmm. And being in America, it's like crack. It's like the weirdest shit is here.
Yeah.
And I talk to one person about a certain topic, and then they refer me on to another topic, and it just goes on and on and on.
I mean, we probably could do 40 of these a year.
Easily. Easily. And there's many branches to go on, and I'm very excited to go on them.
Yeah, they also get a little weirder.
Oh, they get so strange. Bonus thing, I went to Mexico.
Oh, you did?
On the weekend.
Yeah.
And I know Mexico isn't America, but it's very close. And I loved it. Have you been there?
No, I haven't. It was always a trek from Chicago. And then since moving to LA.
Well, I feel like your life has kind of got so sucked into here, and there's so much going on. Like you have family and so much work here.
Yeah, international travel is not really possible for
little kids and stuff.
Well, and just my job.
Totally. There were some cheap flights. One of my favorite bands, Tool, was playing to about 30,000 people. And I just want to say the crowd there, the Mexican crowd, was amazing. So enthusiastic, and not in an annoying way. I've been to a Tool show at what's that? The Staples Center.
Yeah.
Pretty annoying people.
Yeah.
Mexico, just the most warm. People had face paint on. They dressed up. A woman had done all her nails themed in Tool album covers. It was just really, really pure.
I have heard that about shows in Mexico. I have heard that the bootleg merchandise is apparently insane there.
This blew my mind. So I had a friend that had told me about this as well. And you leave a concert, right? There's always someone selling some T-shirts, usually on the ground. They're pretty shitty normally.
I never saw a ton of that in Chicago. That became pretty new to me moving to LA.
LA.
Occasionally there'd be a big enough show where that would happen, but it wasn't. It's not the scale of you go to the Greek theater for a 3,000 or
so describe
5,000
describe what
show.
You see at the Greek, leaving the Greek.
There's always 4 or 5 vendors with T-shirts that they actually look good quality too.
Well, look, I've seen that. Mexico is a whole other level. Yeah. So we left the stadium. There are about maybe 20,000 people there. And they have basically booths set up, about 20 of them in a row. So this is full tables. Every area has different merchandise. The merchandise is better than what the band is printing. The prints are better. It's more beautiful. It's incredible.
That's what I've heard. I have a friend that when they toured there, they just bought it from these vendors and sold that as their merch.
I want to look into this. I assume it's just legally it's a bit looser and they can kind of get away with it where maybe they get burnt if they're doing it in the States or other territories. But God, it was good. This stuff was incredible.
Yeah.
And as a fan of the band, I didn't know where to look. I didn't know what to do. And it's cheaper, it's better. And the vendors there were dope as hell. I was taking photos of them and they were posing for camera and they were just it was the best. The other thing, I went to a mezcal tasting and I learned about mezcal, and I just found it fascinating. So it comes from the agave plant, right? Which is this big, weird, cactus thing.
We have a couple of them in our front. They're a nightmare.
No, so they are, right? So when I first came to LA, which was maybe when I first came on this trip, when I got stuck here, it was about 4 years ago. An agave had just flowered and died. Yeah. And when it was about to fall on the house. There was this huge drama.
The crazy thing about the agaves is when they die, there's a last burst of energy, and this asparagus stalk grows out from the middle of it, and it just keeps going tall.
As tall as the house.
We had one that grew taller.
Incredible.
And it's very
it's a big log.
Yeah.
And it's basically when that dies, once it's flowered, it falls onto your house.
Yeah. It just shoots straight out of this already pointy, dangerous plant.
It's mad. Yeah. And so I didn't realize that's where they're getting mezcal from. They call it so right in the middle of that cactus thing is what they call the pineapple. And that's where they I guess, drain the liquid from. But they have to basically harvest it in Mexico at the exact right point where it hasn't quite flowered, because the flower is like the energy finally leaving.
Yeah.
And the pineapple in the middle sort of starts to rot and like it's useless. And the other thing I found out, they put salts around our glasses, and they were like, this is made out of worms. And I was like, excuse me, what are you talking about? And these are worms that are found in the agave plant. And I'd noticed this on some plants, some of the leaves, sometimes you see they're really scratched up.
Yeah.
And apparently that is coyotes or other wild animals. They can sense the plant is infected with these worms. They love eating these worms. And so if a farmer sees an agave plant all scratched up, it knows that it's infected with worms, so it'll chop off the infected part. They'll get the worms out, and then they'll dry them up, crunch them up, and that turns into salt that you then use to like put on the top of your glass.
So it's almost like the coyotes are like truffle pigs.
They're like truffle pigs,
yeah.
Which blew my mind because I'd seen those scratches. I had no idea that they were out looking for worms that are in this plant.
That is pretty wild.
So that's my little side fact. If you're sick of cult chat, it feels like product placement, but this is, we got given this at the, I bought it at this tasting. It is one of the few female-run mezcal makers in Mexico. And so I thought I would buy a little bottle of this. And I'm going to be sipping it during this episode. Would you like some as well? You can't. You're off the booze.
Yep.
Imagine if I got you back on the alcohol. Terrible.
I thought that was just water, David.
Oh my
you
God.
Tricked me. I thought this is just nectar from the agave plant, right?
So I just wanted to say Mexico's friggin' great, and I purely just went to a tool show. I didn't do any recordings there, but I would like to, maybe I'll do an episode about agave plants. I don't know. Stay tuned for more Flightless Bird. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Support for Flightless Bird comes from Symbiotica. Now, I don't know about you, Rob, but I like living a fairly healthy lifestyle. Both of us are terrified of dying, and I figure a good way to live longer is to just be generally healthy. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, and being healthy looks different for everyone. You're a tall, slender man.
I am.
Different for you than it is for me.
It is. I feel like this is a trap that I'm not going to play into. But we are two healthy men, and I like to take care of my whole body in a way that makes sense to me. And recently, Symbiotica helps me do just that. I've started taking their magnesium L-threonate. It's a daily must-have for supporting my focus and mood. Their liquid magnesium packets utilize cutting-edge technology to deliver better absorption for better results. It keeps me feeling my absolute best, and the vanilla cream flavor tastes very good. It comes in these little pouches that's very easy to consume. You just like rip the top off, squeeze it into your mouth. It tastes delicious. I genuinely mean that when I say the vanilla cream flavor tastes really good, because it really does. Symbiotica helps you maintain healthy habits all year long, no matter what your goals are.
Symbiotica is one of the most trustworthy brands out there. They never compromise on quality and sourcing. Their products are free from seed oils, preservatives, toxins, or artificial additives. It's something you can taste and feel in every packet.
I'm excited to be starting my journey with Symbiotica, and I worked out an awesome offer for my listeners so you can try their products too.
Go to symbiotica.com/bird for 20% off plus free shipping. That's symbiotica.com/bird, symbiotika.com/bird to claim 20% off and free shipping today.
Support for Flightless Bird comes from Mint Mobile. I don't know about you, but I like keeping my money where I can see it. I want to know where it is. Unfortunately, traditional big wireless carriers also seem to like keeping my money as well.
That's why you have a wallet that is completely see-through, right, David?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's the exact reason. I never like to seal it away. I like to see it at all times. After years of overpaying for wireless, I finally got fed up from crazy high wireless bills, which were for me about $80 a month and more. Plus, I got sick of the bogus fees and all the free perks that actually cost more in the long run. So say bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month, which is a lot better than the $80 I was paying.
All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited data and talk, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts. That's huge whenever you change carriers. I've had the same phone number since I was 15.
Incredible run.
I would not switch providers unless I could take my number with me.
No, there'd be no point. So that is another really good thing, and it is so much cheaper. If you like your money like I do, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/bird. That's mintmobile.com/bird.
Upfront payment for $45 for a 3-month 5 gigabyte plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for the first 3 months, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Okay, speaking of not lovely / unusual, Quiverfull. Do you want to learn?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
Yep.
I hadn't heard of the whole Quiverfull thing before I'd done my Focus on the Family episode. In that episode, I'd met Zach, a firefighter who'd casually mentioned he was raised in a pretty big family.
My family is 10 siblings and 2 parents. So I have 4 brothers and 5 sisters. Big family. I am the 8th of 10. So I have a younger brother and a younger sister. We're approximately 2 years apart on average. So my mom was having kids for 20 years. And largely due to my parents' belief that God is in charge of planning your family. No contraception, no anything. If God wanted you to have kids, then you were having kids. And that's, if God didn't want you to have kids, then you wouldn't have them. That's kind of their mentality back then.
Turns out that in Zach's family, that mentality had a name, Quiverfull, as in a full quiver. A quiver being a pouch that an archer puts all their arrows in, except in this case it's a metaphor where the arrows are children. If that all sounds a bit weird, it comes from Psalm 127 in the Bible, which says, "As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them." Basically, a man is happy when he has loads of children. That's what Quiverfull is all about.
They wrote a book called The Full Quiver.
And it turns out that Zach's parents, Rick and Jan, had written an entire book espousing the values of the movement.
So Rick and Jan Hess literally wrote the book on it. And it had all sorts of things in there from discipline and just like guided plan and traditional gender roles and stuff like that. I don't know if it's still available. Last printing was a while ago, but I'm sure there's copies running around.
I immediately jumped online and ordered a copy. First produced in 1989, it was out of print, but I managed to track one down. Family Planning and the Lordship of Christ was the subtitle, and it had a few 5-star reviews. This book is for married Christian couples, male and female. It shows why it's important to trust God in everything, said Earl in all caps. This book is direct insight into the plan and design the Bible has created family planning to be, said Mum to Many. It also had a few 1-star reviews. This book, while sincere and helpful, is in parts sincerely misguided. These folks, more or less a mouthpiece for the Quiverfull cult, terrify me. The world needs less children, not more. With all that buzzing around in my head, after our Focus on the Family episode had aired, I called Zach back to talk about what it was like to be raised Quiverfull style.
My parents are from around here, both college educated, kind of in the early 70s, mid 70s, started having kids, my oldest sister, and they always had some sort of Christian faith background. And I believe just through reading and the influences of a certain Christian organization, kind of got the idea that maybe we should let God, plan our family.
That organization he'd mentioned was the Institute in Basic Life Principles, IBLP, a fundamentalist Christian organization set up by Bill Gothard in 1961, a guy who once claimed that Cabbage Patch dolls were evil and of Satan. The doc series Happy Shiny People touches on this group and Bill Gothard, but that's a podcast for another day. Not great people. IBLP also set up something called the Advanced Training Institute, a homeschooling program for Christian kids. And somewhere in that mix, Zach says his parents got sold on the idea of Quiverfull. Am I correct in thinking that Quiverfull is taken essentially from a quote in the Bible about having loads of kids?
Yes, I believe, and I should know this off the top of my head, but it's paraphrased, children are a gift from God. So that's what they believe. And there's no qualifications for that. So period, children are a gift. So that's where it kind of starts from. And then it says children are like the arrows in the hand of an archer or something like that. And so the idea being you raise up your kids and then you can launch them out into the world for the greater good of Christianity, and kind of spreading the word that way. So children are essentially vectors of preaching the gospel or spreading, the evangelical word.
Was this a common belief in your neck of the woods, or was your family a real outlier?
I think we were outliers. However, we did find fellow outliers with us.
Yeah.
So growing up, it was very normal to have friends and families of, at least 8 kids or more. So if somebody only had 2 or 3 kids, they probably weren't that invested in their religion. That was what we kind of picked up. Whether that was instilled in us, that mindset, explicitly or implicitly, that's kind of how we felt like, oh, they're not super religious. They're not very holy.
The other big thing with Quiverfull was homeschooling your children. This idea that as parents, it was your responsibility and yours alone to teach them about the world.
That's a big tenet of homeschooling and of the Quiverfull movement is God gave you those children, therefore you are responsible and the best at everything that they can do.
The other thing that Quiverfullers loved, or should I say hated, was TV and movies. They were mostly evil.
I don't know if I touched on it in the last interview.
No, dive in, yeah.
But we couldn't watch The Lion King. And we had heard that one of our friends that had just, it's a heavy story, but he killed his mom and he tried to kill his sister and he kidnapped his little brother. And,
oh my God.
And we were just like, what is going on? This is crazy. And it was huge and all over the news at the time. And then after the fact, I don't know how it came out, but it came out. My parents were just like, oh, it was because they watched The Lion King right before that. And so we're just like, that's crazy. Who knew? And nothing different. And turns out that since then I have watched The Lion King within the last couple of years, and my parents are still both alive.
These days, Zach is still a Christian, but has very different beliefs to what he was raised in. His kids, all 2 of them, go to public school, and he trusts the teachers to do a good job at doing what they're trained to do. He says it was him and his wife having their own kids that made them realize Quiverfull definitely wasn't for them, that maybe the idea of leaving it up to God doesn't work for everything.
I would say the biggest part was when my wife almost died with, having our kids. She just has terrible hyperemesis, morning sickness, and it got worse with every pregnancy. So at the end of our 3rd pregnancy, she was in the ER every 2 weeks for fluids and just trying to survive. And then she'd be okay and kind of coast downhill for 2 weeks and have to go back in and get more fluids and kind of re-nourished and then come back out and just be dying for another 2 weeks. So babies were all super healthy, but another couple of kids, maybe one more, probably would have been extremely unhealthy, if not dangerous for her. It was definitely dangerous for her. And either she would have died or she and the baby would have died. So it just kind of think that that falls under, well, if God wants you to die, then you die having kids because kids are a blessing and that's what you're supposed to do. So that kind of gets hairy, how you ever want to parse that out.
It's weirdly a little unclear who started Quiverfull in America. A woman called Nancy Campbell started publishing a magazine called Above Rubies in the late 70s, which really pushed the idea of women staying at home and raising a ton of kids. There was another big book, The Way Home, by Mary Pride, which doubled down on all this. Mary Pride was a big reference point for Zach's parents too. Basically, be fruitful and multiply was taken very seriously. And there was this underpinning idea that to spread Christianity, the best way to spread it was to spread a load of your own Christian children. How does it work with your parents now? Because obviously they raised you with a certain belief system. They wrote the book on it, and arguably their kids aren't following their book to the letter, So what do they make of you?
I think, well, they still love us, but I think my dad would prefer that all of us were still more like we were. And I think my mom is okay with us becoming who we are individually. A big tenet of that, of the way we were raised, is there's another verse in Proverbs, I think, about raise up a child in the way they should go and they will not depart from it, or something like that. So the promise is, if you do this, then they will do this. And that's just not how life works. And it's pretty easy to see that, even if it's written in the Bible, maybe we're translating or understanding that verse a little bit wrong, because that's just not how it turned out. My parents literally wrote the book on it. Most of the 10 of us are not doing that, if at all, anymore. So it's just kind of case in point right there.
Stay tuned for more Flightless Bird. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Support for Flightless Bird comes from Bombas. Now, what if I told you that the most important part of your spring cleaning routine is your sock drawer?
I would believe you. I have a thing about socks. I just hate when I get holes in them. I have to constantly make sure that I have socks that are holding up.
I have one big drawer. Half of it is for underwear and the other half is for socks. And the socks, I constantly need to clean that shit out because they're getting holes. I'm missing socks. It's a disaster. That's why I'm here to talk to you about Bombas, because they make really great socks. If you have any mismatched socks, or maybe you're missing a sock or 2 or 3, then get some fresh ones from Bombas, because they are really, really good socks.
Bombas engineers blister-fighting, sweat-wicking athletic socks will help you go from that first mile to a whole marathon.
And if you're looking for a nice pair to wear to a wedding, Bombas also does beautiful dress socks that will make you look great in your loafers or your heels or any of your other fancy shoes. And they also just have socks that are good for everyday casual living. I have some ankle-high socks from them that I really, really like. And what I particularly enjoy about these socks is, you know how some socks you wear them and they feel weak? They're like slipping down the leg, or they're a bit loose. The elastic holds, and it's genuinely incredibly satisfying.
And you know what goes great with new spring socks?
What, Rob?
Fresh white t-shirts.
Oh, yeah.
Waterproof slides, and a few pairs of buttery soft underwear.
Ooh la la. Yep, Bombas makes all of that stuff as well. And the best part of all of it, for every comfy pair of socks you purchase, Bombas donates another comfy pair to someone facing homelessness. And Bombas is going international. Enjoy worldwide shipping to over 200 countries.
Head over to bombas.com/bird and use code BIRD for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/bird, code BIRD for 20% off your first purchase.
Bombas.com/bird and use code BIRD. Zach said I could probably call his mum, Jan, to get her take on all this, her point of view from the inside. Is there anything you want me to talk to her about that you would be curious about yourself, like me as a weird conduit?
You are a weird conduit, but in the best way. I think I would just want to know what the mindset was at the time to where this would be something that you would want to tell all Christians. In my faith life and in my regular life, there's not many things that I would want to write a book about and just tell everybody, like, hey, I discovered this. Everybody should do this. This is amazing, But life is different now than it was in the late 70s, early 80s, so maybe that's just a function of culture, but just the mindset of wanting to do this. And I know my parents, and I don't think they're bad people. I think they wanted the best for us and for other people, so they thought this was the best way to achieve that.
And so with that in mind, I called Jan.
My name is Jan Hess, and I live in Bellevue, Nebraska, far eastern Nebraska near Omaha.
I've been thinking about what Zach had said, how his parents obviously got so into this thing that they decided to write a whole book about it. And it turns out their way in was kind of underwhelming. They just sort of liked the sound of it.
We had friends that said, you should consider not using any birth control and let God plan your family. And it's like, okay, why would we do that? As we looked into it, we thought at the time, it just sounds like a good idea. Why don't we do that and really trust God with this, is what we had decided. Then we ended up with 10 children.
I have only one sibling, and that seemed like a lot for my parents. How do you cope with 10 children? It's a lot of children.
It's a lot of children, but they weren't 10 2-year-olds. We did spread them out. And by the time the third child came along, the other two were old enough to entertain him, and they just got along really well. I homeschooled for 30 years.
As to why her and her husband wrote the book and felt the urge to spread the message, that was pretty understated too.
We were expecting our 6th child at the time. And Rick said, I'm going to write a book. I just want to write a book and get this philosophy out there. And he went down into the basement, and a few hours later came up with an outline that was basically the book as it is now.
I feel like your kids haven't all embraced the Quiverfull movement. They don't have, 20 kids each. At family Christmas, do you sometimes find yourself looking across and sort of passing them a copy of the book and say, have you reconsidered this?
No, it's great. You just assume that everybody's going to have 10 kids, and they don't. And that was their decisions. And I think they've done a really good job. I still have 18 grandchildren, so I'm not going to complain.
Now, it goes without saying that there are plenty of people critical of the Quiverfull movement, and rightfully so, in my opinion. Jan seems aware of this.
All I remember is the bad connotation associated with it. That the man is king, and you're barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, and I honestly don't remember anything that positive about it. And we had heard there were people, this is really crazy, people making communities where the bell rings and everybody gets up, and you have to have all these children and do everything when the bell rings. And it's like, excuse me, that was not our intent at all.
Today, the Quiverfull movement isn't exactly a big thing in American society, but I'd argue that its ideas are, mainly ideas about breeding. Now, bear with me here. There's a chapter in a full quiver that has the title Fruitfulness and Victory, and I just wanted to read a bit of that. It lays out a scenario. If there are, say, 8 billion Christian couples of childbearing age in the United States and they each have 6 children, that means that in 20 to 30 years, those 16 million folks will have had around 48 million children. Add to that the parents, and we have 64 million people. If 90% of those 48 million children get married and the resulting 22 million couples have 6 children, we arrive at a staggering 132 million children, which, when added to the previous generation and some before, equals around 200 million in 40 to 80 years. It goes on with one more bit. With the nation's low birth rate, the high divorce rate, and an unmarrying and anti-child viewpoint, and a debauched nation perhaps unable to slow down the spread of AIDS, we can begin to see what happens politically. A 500 million person boycott of a company which violated God's standards would be very effective, and what a majority in elections the elect would enjoy. It's hard not to think about that when you look at Trump pushing for more births, or when you hear about Elon Musk's 50th child. Right-wing governments love the idea of increased birth rates, making more of your own to push back against the immigrants and the outsiders, to make sure we're not all replaced. I'm reading a piece on thehill.com called Why Musk and Vance Want You to Have More Babies. In that column, Christian Stade writes, "Pronatalism is having a moment. The Trump administration has announced plans to apportion state funding according to birth rates, and administration officials have endorsed tax penalties and even voting right restrictions for the childless. What is alarming about this moment in America is the sheer volume of pro-natalist policy and rhetoric issuing forth from the likes of powerful men such as Elon Musk, Vice President J.D. Vance, and President Trump. The unabashedly coercive intent is to reduce women to merely their reproductive potential. It all sounds kind of familiar. As far as Jan and the book she co-wrote with her husband, to me, it feels like she's changed some of her more specific ideas about raising kids.
Actually, when you read the chapter that I wrote, please, forgive me. Things have changed a little bit in that.
I think that includes some of the stuff like not being able to watch The Lion King. She shifted on that one a little, which adult Zach will be very pleased to hear.
I didn't go see my first movie until I was 14 in the theater.
My God, what was your first film?
It was Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
How was that? That for a first film, that must have blown your fucking mind.
It did. It still does. I love the Lord of the Rings series. Very upset when I learned that you hadn't seen it. It was, that was not great.
If there's one thing I'm going to say about
back to Lord of the Rings,
one thing about holding media back from your kids for religious reasons, it is kind of cool to like shelter your kids and then blow their minds by taking them to the craziest shit imaginable. Like if you had seen nothing and then Lord of the Rings comes out and that's the first thing you've seen, you haven't seen a lot of cartoons, you haven't seen any special effects, and in a cinema, it would blow your fucking socks off.
Might like traumatize a child.
That too. It's fucking.
I don't know that the juice is worth the squeeze there.
True. Yeah. I'm not recommending it. I'm just like, because I think Jurassic Park made a big impact on me because that was one of the first films I saw in a cinema. Just because we didn't watch many films. So I wrote about this a bit on Webworm with Focus on the Family, and there was a comment that a reader made that I kind of was thinking about. I think Quiverfull is not great.
Yeah.
So, but then talking to his mum, she was just this sweet woman who had basically done the best that she could do. And it's a bit like what we fell into with Focus on the Family. It's like all these parents raised their kids with some terrible methods.
But they were trying.
But they were trying.
The best they could.
Shane Meyer-Holtz wrote this over on Webworm, and he moved out of a super intense type of Christianity into a much more liberal one. But he wrote, for a ton of reasons you get into, this stuff is incredibly dangerous and paves the way to authoritarianism. But I also want to note how hard that would have been to see for many of our parents. It's easy to forget that part of how this became so pervasive in places like New Zealand and America was that it was broadcast as the default option for many Christian parents in a saturated media landscape. This gave it a sense of legitimacy and normality in the church landscape and tapped into this huge sense of trust in wise pastoral leadership by churchgoers who were largely used to following directives on how to do things the right way. What we now see as completely bonkers and downright harmful was unapologetically printed on cutesy bookmarks and kids' books in Christian bookstores, which made it seem obvious, sensible, wise, and firm, but kind. And I just keep thinking about that. These parents probably now going, and I think a bit like what Jan was going, which was like, I probably wouldn't, she's not hitting her kids over the head with the book today.
Yeah, I mean, they were listening to this authority figure in their church that was telling them, he's the voice of God. And
in saying that, Quiverfull did have some quite batshit teachings. Mary Pride, who was kind of one of the main instigators of the whole Quiverfull thing, she took that quote in Psalms very seriously. She basically argued that sex for anything but procreation was like incredibly wrong and pleasure bad, kids only. Pride argued God commanded that sex be at least potentially fruitful. All forms of sex that shy away from marital fruitfulness are perverted. It was also Pride's belief that the devil deceives Christian couples into using birth control so that children God otherwise willed to create are prevented from being born.
I mean, the whole contraception is bad and sex is just for procreation isn't unique to Quiverfull, though. It's a lot of the
heaps of religions do it.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of non-Christian religions that are also deeply into no contraception.
That was just the pillar of Quiverfull.
That was their only. I think what I find funny and interesting about it is that's the one thing.
That was just the hill they were going to die on, and if you.
Yeah, it's not like they had other things. Like there was little other things attached in the world of that form of Christianity, but the one thing was like no contraception. God is in control of your quivers and just do your thing. And if you're meant to have loads of kids, you will. And if you don't, you don't.
Did they have any like stance on sexual desire then too?
No, sexual desire was God's way to make children. Like the only reason for sexual desire was that you fuck and have kids.
This all just comes back to the fact that if there's more Christians or more people within your religion, that's more people to go proselytize your religion.
Absolutely.
And push it.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, just create an army of like mostly white Christians to go out and create more of those people. Yeah. Which is interesting because I think, and I'm curious to get your take on this because I don't have kids, but there is that thing as a parent, right, where you create this little person so that when you die, you can like send your ethics and morals and thoughts into the world. Like part of the joy of having a kid seems to be creating a little you that you then like launch forward into the world.
A little bit of that. There's a little bit of like really seeing yourself in your kid, but in a less like wanting to push your ethics.
Since you want your kids to become whoever they become, as long as they're guided to not be an asshole.
But it's like seeing the young version of me in Calvin and being like, oh, that part of you was me when I was 7 years old, and I see that and I connect to that a lot.
Do you think you're secretly raising them to become podcasters, podcast producers? I mean, Calvin's doing pretty well on this show at the end.
He is.
You know, there was another thing I found quite amazing. There were these Quiverfull adherents, Brad and Dawn Irons, and they ran a business that I really like the sound of called Blessed Arrow Sterilization Reversal Ministry. And their whole thing was basically going around and anyone that had been sterilized, like, what do you call it when men get in America? Is there like a term for it?
Vasectomy?
Vasectomy. So Brad and Dawn Irons advocate for Quiverfull ideas while providing funding, physician referrals, and support to Christians wishing to undergo sterilization reversal surgery. Institute for Basic Life Principles founder Bill Gothard, who was, for the record, a very, very bad man, also advocates for reversals, saying that sterilized couples have cut off children and should devote themselves instead to raising up godly seed.
So within the Quiverfull religion, are the priests and people in the church then also having kids?
Quiverfull is like a branch of Christians. You'll be a normal old Christian going to like a normal old Baptist church or a evangelical church, but you'll be like, we are also Quiverfull, and we are taking an extra step, and we are not using contraception. Therefore, we are Quiverfull, and you are not. And we are right, and you are wrong.
They think everyone should be doing that, but then like, how are they looking at the priest that's preaching to them? And
who isn't doing it?
Who isn't Quiverfull because he's celibate?
Oh, really good question. I mean, within this type, the priests aren't celibate. So that's like a Catholic thing, right? Where like priests are celibate.
Yeah, I'm always unsure which ones are or not.
I think with these happy clappy, with these happy clappy Christians, no celibacy.
Okay.
They're having sex, but they're married, and they're only having sex to have children. So there's no like celibacy involved. The whole thing with Quiverfull, I guess, that I find so fascinating is it's one scripture in Psalm about a man having like a quiver full of arrows. They're like, you should have children. A man is happy if he has children. And just a certain number of Christians went, this is a cool idea. The idea kind of took off, and the ones that wrote most strongly about it in Quiverfull all very much love the idea of like breeding more of themselves to spread the word. And non-Quiverfull Christians would also, I think all Christian families of a certain type think they do need to indoctrinate their kids to make more of themselves. So it's not on this, they're not all on this idea of like, we must have 10 Christian kids, but they are very much like, our kids should be Christian so they can keep up the faith, which is also with other faith traditions are exactly the same. It's like a lot of religions want to raise their kids in that exact thing so that it doesn't die out.
Well, I also feel like it's a generational thing too. Like when you were a kid, like most of the families you grew up around probably had more kids than
totally. I mean, there's less of that now in general, right? I mean, I don't have any kids, and I'm not planning on having them anytime soon.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have been as trendy, 30 years ago. I would have probably been more of a freak then than I am now.
Yeah.
You know?
It's this weirdo that has no kids instead of 7. Because, yeah, but I mean, most of the kids that I knew growing up, like, they were families of 3, 4, 5 kids.
And would have most of them been religious? Or yeah. It's funny, eh? I think there is this idea within Christianity, and I'm only talking about Christianity because it's the thing I know, and so I feel I can talk to it, but it's that idea of like a family is the normal thing. It's like father, mother, children, white picket fence.
Well, and that was the goal.
Which is also hand in hand with the American dream, right? Like that is very much the American idyllic thing of like that Truman Show existence.
Which there is some merit to
totally
that. Like the fulfillment that I get from my kids.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, your kids rule. And that's the thing. Like you want to, I think every parent, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about. I have no fucking idea. But like you want to have a stable situation, which is why the white picket fence and shit comes into it. Like that's one way of giving stability.
Right. Which I also am not in the mindset that like the only way for fulfillment is to have children.
Totally. You're not a Quiverfull live and die by that particular philosophy.
Well, and the same way that I said that I was probably wrongfully judging people that had a lot of kids.
Totally. Who aren't necessarily religious. They just want kids.
Yeah. I don't think I'm doing the same, though. Like, the opposite. Like, I think if someone doesn't have kids, I'm not like, oh, those weirdos don't have kids.
I never feel like you've judged me once for not having children.
Okay.
I feel at times, I think I'm an asshole. I think I sometimes judge friends that have kids because I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you bringing like more kids into this planet that's kind of messed up?
Yeah.
And also like, why are you having like so many children when you could just have a couple? Like, do we need this many more people on the planet? But that's me just kind of like, as someone without kids, being a judgy asshole as well, you know?
I also think a lot of that has to do like geographically where you are in the country.
Completely fair.
Like I think urban areas seems like a lot of the families have less kids.
Yep, true. Or just like less room to like have them, right?
Kids, yeah. And then like you're having the bigger families when you're moving out into the more rural areas of the country, which then happen to trend at like a higher religious concentration too.
This is interesting shit to get into, isn't it? It would be kind of interesting looking at the reasons for family size in America
correlation
right now. Yeah, just between like culturally and mixed up with like religion and mixed up with area and mixed up with your socioeconomic status, like how that all lines up. Because I have no clue. Oh, another Quiverfull thing is that they maintain that God opens and closes the womb of a woman on a case-by-case basis. So essentially, like any attempt to regulate fertility is basically giving a middle finger to God because he is the one that is physically opening and shutting the womb. And so if you're trying to control it, you're being like, God, I don't trust you, so I'm taking over. And that's rude.
It makes me think, did you ever see that movie Teeth?
Oh, about the vagina with teeth?
Vagina dentata?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It made me think of
it's
God.
Those teeth are God. You know, that's God. I forgot. That was a very funny horror.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Enjoyed that. It was based on like a myth, right? Or some idea that in some cultures, vaginas do have little teeth. Yeah, the whole Bill Gothard thing is I'm not going to do it immediately. I'll do it in like a year or something. But the whole Bill Gothard Institute for Basic Life Principles, which a lot of Quiverfull people are into, that was super bad. That'll be for another day.
And not super bad, the movie.
Not super bad, the movie, which I, back in the day, did a junket for. I flew to New Zealand to LA to interview the cast. And there's a photo with me I'm wearing a shirt, and you know, sometimes you wear, as when I wore dress shirts for the news in New Zealand, and it was a certain shirt that when you start sweating, it instantly comes through. And so I've got this photo where I've got my arms around like Jonah Hill and McLovin and Michael Cera. And I've just got these massive like wet patches under my arms, and it's disgusting. And it's one of my favorite photos.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'll find it. All right. Feedback. The feedback quality, it gets better and better.
Yeah, I feel like
I got to say.
It's been improving. It's been improving the episodes.
No, I mean, it blows my mind what like the insight people are writing in about.
I have one that I saw.
Oh, please, hit me.
Bob Barker, prison. Yeah. Different Bob Barker.
Different Bob Barker. A lot of people wrote in about this. Michael said, you've probably already been told this or figured it out, but there's a Bob Barker in a small town in North Carolina. in a quaint small town outside of the capital, Raleigh,
North Carolina.
He runs a prison supply company. I used to do his lawn service about 20 years ago. He owns a lot of that small town. So yeah, not the host, but another guy.
Which that Bob Barker also died.
Yes, both dead.
But the legacy lives on of both of them.
It does.
Through Drew Carey and toothbrushes and
little slippers for prisoners. Yeah. Joe wrote in, I think the shitting on the blimp thing is like performing in front of people. It's way more embarrassing to sing in front of 5 friends than it is to sing in front of 500 people in an audience. There's a level of anonymity that makes it okay, as opposed to shitting in a blimp, where if it stinks, everyone knows it was you. Joe succinctly summed up my very stuttery, weird argument last week about shitting on a blimp.
Except it was not about shitting. It was about peeing.
People can sometimes hear you peeing through the door.
I will say, when we recorded it, we were just listening to the audio doc. Seeing the photos on YouTube, on our YouTube version, which if you want to watch it, it's there. It's much smaller than I was picturing.
The blimp or the toilet?
The portion of the blimp that you were sitting in.
What do you think it was? Do you think it was like a size of a small podcast studio?
I thought it was pretty big.
No, it's like you're on a minibus.
I, for some reason, thought it was the size of like a gymnasium. I don't know. Like a basketball court.
It's really good.
Not
really
a small bus.
No, to clarify, yeah, the Goodyear blimp, you're in like a minivan underneath, a minivan shaped enclosure.
I imagine something much bigger. I imagined like you said a bus.
Yeah, I did use the word bus,
but I was thinking like Greyhound bus, but like wider.
No, I should have said minivan. Yeah, and so in a minivan, suddenly stepping into the bathroom and being like, "Excuse me, I need to piss or shit." Deal with it.
Well, I think we were both on the same page that shitting on this thing
was a no-no.
It was
the weeing that was the issue.
Yeah.
But now you know it's small.
I mean, I still would have peed on that.
I'm going to send Jeff on this blimp with a full bladder.
Yeah.
And see what you do.
I mean,
Tom, who actually featured in our pinball episode back in the day, he is a huge stickler for details, which I appreciate. He said, you should have further explained the differences or similarities between Zeppelins versus dirigibles.
Yeah, you should have, David.
I don't know how to say that word. Versus blimps versus airships. Zeppelins were rigid body airships filled with hydrogen. But since modern day Goodyear airships are rigid body, could they also be considered as Zeppelins filled with helium? I'm going to admit I don't understand any of that, but I wanted to read it out because he's very smart. Scott wrote in from Portland, which is where we're doing our live show soon. There's a huge old hangar about 70 miles from Portland in the town of Tillamook. The wood truss construction is a marvel. It sounds like this old hangar was maybe used to house the airships in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade and also in The Rocketeer. Famous old hangar, 70 miles out of Portland. I'll investigate. Nicole wrote in about our prisons episode. I was excited to see an episode focus on prisons. The US prison system is a heavy, complex, and often painful topic, but an important one. I've had the privilege of working closely with both incarcerated individuals and program providers in corrections. I teach yoga to men and women in jail in Little Rock, Arkansas, many of whom are either awaiting sentencing or serving part of their sentence before being transferred to prison. This is just one of the hundreds of yoga programs that Prison Yoga Project provides globally. We also provide training to correctional staff on incorporating these practices into their work. I just thought that was a cool thing. Someone's in there doing yoga with prisoners. How awesome is that?
And speaking of prisons, adolescence.
Oh, God.
On Netflix. New show.
I have just finished it. You aware?
I just finished the first episode. It's heavy.
It's heavy. It's really heavy.
Yeah.
It is about a child that allegedly commits a crime.
Yeah, 13-year-old boy.
13-year-old boy. And it's dark.
Yeah, it's real dark. And everything's a oneer that they're shooting.
The whole thing. Which, until you told me, I embarrassingly had not noticed. I noticed some bits of it were one shot.
Yeah.
Each episode, one shot, insane. recommend it.
Yeah, it's only 4 episodes, 4-hour-long episodes.
Which I appreciate because I'm kind of getting sick of too many episodes. Like, let's have, if it can be told in 4 episodes, tell it in 4.
I like that for some of these true crime reenactment shows. Like, I watch a lot of the, like, BBC crime shows like this.
You like kind of grittier, methodical storytelling, right? Yeah, I'm the same.
Less like NCIS version or Law and Order version of less American versions of these.
UK does gritty so well.
Yeah. And all the actors in them are so insane. They're all like classically trained, like Shakespearean actors.
Yeah.
Stephen Graham's in this one, who is incredible.
A good face, right?
Yeah.
Like you believe him as that character. It's not you're not looking at Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
You're looking at, oh no, I believe this is this person. Anyway, I recommend it, right?
Yes.
Amazing show. A lot of people wrote in about the white dog poop that I mentioned. So, white dog poop is caused by the level of calcium in a dog's feces. Dog food's gotten better over time, and thus the calcium levels have decreased, meaning you don't see white dog poop around anymore. So there you go.
Growing up, my dog had a lot of colorful poop. Our dog liked to eat crayons.
Oh, amazing.
Get into our crayons. And she was able to take the wrapper off and then would just eat the crayons. And
just
then,
love crayons.
Yeah. And then when she would...
So you'd have like orange shits and blue shits?
It was just like chunks of crayons.
That's very funny. Yeah. Apparently, there's also a scene, embarrassingly, I've never seen Step Brothers. There's a scene in Step Brothers where Will Ferrell's character licks a white dog poo. So it is a thing that apparently America has as well as New Zealand. Angela also wrote in from Australia saying, I remember this distinctly in the 80s, walking home from school in Brisbane, Australia, and my brother picking up dried white dog poop and drawing with it on the footpath like it was chalk. Australia. It's good. Finally, Dan wrote in about the blimp toilet. In your Goodyear blimp episode, you mentioned being on a regular aircraft in the bathroom and looking out the window. And Dan works for an airline, I should mention. But you missed the big question. Were you able to pee with the window shade open? In my experience, 50% of guys can't go unless the shade is down for reasons they can't quite justify. And I thought this raises an interesting point. I don't know if the blimp toilet had a window or not, but when you were weeing on a plane, do you have any issue with window?
I don't think I've ever been in a plane that has a window in the bathroom.
Incredible.
Yeah.
When we go to New Zealand...
Well, you're in a much bigger plane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you to the bathroom. I'm going to stand with you.
And see if I can pee
and
with the window
essentially,
open.
if you're a guy, if you stand...
Is the bathroom bigger on those planes?
It's a bit bigger. You got a bit more room.
Because it's tight.
If I'm weeing on a little American plane, I'm bent over and trying to not touch wet walls, and it's awful in there.
The trash is always like
full.
So hard to get the paper towel in without touching everything.
You're just trying to poke and not touch all these other wet towels. So when you're on the flight to New Zealand, if you're weeing, there's a window there and you look out and there's clouds, there's sky. It's not like you look out there and there's someone wandering by. That would be a problem. But yeah, apparently according to this air host, 50% of guys can't go unless that window is down. And I just find that fascinating. So we'll try with you. Maybe I'm an exhibitionist. I've got no reason to be. I like the window being open. It's like free. It's like I'm weeing in the woods or something, but I'm weeing up in the sky.
I don't think I'd have a problem with that.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
I'll be in there with you and we'll see what you do.
Did you have asphalt in New Zealand?
Yeah, we had asphalt.
All right.
Yeah. Why?
No,
why?
I had an ex-girlfriend.
Where this is going.
I had an ex-girlfriend that she grew up in Texas, and she just did not know what asphalt was.
What do they have there? Dirt.
I think it's too hot. Maybe that it
probably melts and just gets all fucked up.
Or I don't know.
Oh, that could be another episode. If you're in Texas, flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. Do you know what asphalt is? And if not, what do you use instead?
I mean, just concrete, probably.
Just concrete.
Yeah.
Why do you use asphalt instead of concrete? Like, what's the reason?
I don't know.
Asphalt's like, it's sort of like bits of rock, black rock, right?
Yeah, it's
it
darker,
sort of looks like
which
that.
I guess if it's like a really, we're going to sound real stupid if we're
That's
wrong.
all right. We always do. It's fine.
If it's like really hot there, I don't know if it absorbs too much and then the ground is
hot.
Too hot?
Too hot. And the little Texans get little hot tootsies. If you know, flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com.
I mean, maybe she just didn't know a lot about types of surfaces,
which is fine.
Yeah,
I mean, if my partner didn't know about types of surfaces, it would be fine. I wouldn't hold it against her. Clearly, you have. That's another episode down. Feedback, flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com.
Portland, April 13th. San Francisco, not San Francisco.
April 18th.
April 18th.
And we'll see you there. And have a wonderful rest of the week. And we'll see you next week.